Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving deep into the intense building science behind protecting homes in what is, honestly, one of America's most punishing environments, East Lake, Florida. And look, we're not just talking about hammering down a few shingles here. We are talking about structural survival against a climate that is actively trying to tear your house apart. So you really have to ask yourself, is your roof actually surviving the perfect storm? We kind of tend to think of roofs as just, this aesthetic cap that keeps the rain off our heads. But in a hostile coastal climate, no way. It is a highly engineered frontline defense, working 24/7 to keep your home completely intact. Okay, let's dive into this. Here's our blueprint for today. We'll start with Florida's ultimate climate challenge, look at the hidden signs of roof failure, cover the hurricane code standards, walk through the roof replacement process, and wrap up with protecting your investment. Section 1. Florida's Ultimate Climate Challenge. We're looking at the perfect storm of roof deterioration. East Lake sits in one of the absolute most demanding roofing climates in America. Period. We are constantly battling Gulf Coast humidity, that salty air blowing in from Tampa Bay, intense UV exposure, and daily thermal cycling. Honestly, try to imagine your roof as a living entity. Every single day, as temperatures swing from the morning chill to that intense, blistering afternoon heat, the materials expand and contract. This daily thermal cycling is literally loosening fasteners over time. It's pulling the nails right out of the wood. Combine that with the bay's salty air actively corroding our metal flashing, and you've got a recipe for rapid, totally invisible deterioration. But it's not just the sun and the salt for sure. It's also the beautiful local geography playing secret assassin. In neighborhoods like East Lake Woodlands, that gorgeous mature tree canopy, it actually creates a persistent shaded moisture trap. This constant dampness prevents your roof from ever fully drying out, which promotes aggressive algae growth and, worst of all, invisible wood rot right in the structural decking hidden underneath. Section 2. Hidden signs of roof failure. Spotting trouble before it's a disaster. Now, what's really interesting about this is how the physical damage you see on a roof is a direct symptom of those invisible environmental causes we just talked about. Seeing blistering and granule loss? That's intense UV exposure and thermal cycling just baking the material. Got a rotting deck or mold? That's often caused by poor attic ventilation trapping all that brutal humidity. And leaking flashing? That points straight to salt air corrosion eating away at your sealants. You see, the roof functions as an entire interconnected system constantly reacting to its environment. And here is where it gets incredibly insidious. Gulf Coast humidity makes leak detection extremely tricky. Why? Because moisture travels along the internal rafters. Water intrusion almost never announces itself with a sudden, obvious waterfall in your living room. In fact, that visible brown stain on your ceiling is usually nowhere near the actual entry point on the roof. Water sneaks into a compromised area, travels all the way along the internal wooden rafters, and then drips down, quietly rotting the wood and ruining your insulation for months before you even notice a thing. Section 3. The Hurricane Code Standards. Building for Survival. So the crucial point is how we actually fight back against these elements. Florida implements some of the strictest building codes in the entire country, specifically the High Velocity Hurricane Zone, or HVHZ. It sounds like a disaster movie title, right? But it's a real vital structural classification. It requires enhanced fastening schedules, heavy-duty waterproof underlayment, and completely sealed shingle installations. These aren't just bureaucratic red tape. They are battle-tested engineering protections absolutely essential for keeping a home intact when a tropical storm hits Pinellas County. Which brings us to a really vital number, 130 miles per hour. You might go out and buy premium shingles rated for 130 mile per hour winds, expecting total peace of mind. But here is the catch. Those top-tier shingles will easily rip off and fail at much lower wind speeds if they're installed incorrectly. Literally, without the proper hurricane straps and exact HVHZ fastening patterns, that expensive wind rating is practically meaningless. The wind uplift will just bypass the shingle entirely and rip the structural components apart. Section 4. The Roof Replacement Process, a Systematic Approach. And this brilliantly illustrates how local pros, like Crestline Roofing, for example, tackle these high-stakes replacements. They use a totally transparent three-phase process. First, the inspection and proposal. That's evaluating the whole structural system, from attic ventilation right up to the ridge cap. Second is preparation and installation, which means adhering strictly to those HVHZ codes we talked about. And third, final inspection and cleanup, literally using magnetic rollers to sweep your yard for stray metal debris. It's a well-oiled machine that usually takes just 1 to 3 days. I love this quote from a local source. They said, "We're not a patch and pray operation, and we're not a high-pressure sales team pushing unnecessary replacements." This hits the nail on the head. Honest assessment is absolutely crucial. Look, post-storm panic is very real, but honestly, many homes might just need targeted repairs, fixing some chimney flashing or improving attic ventilation, rather than a full, incredibly costly replacement.
Section 5, protecting your investment. Choosing the right defense.
Let's move to your actual materials and see how this builds your defense strategy. Your choice fundamentally alters your home's survival. Asphalt shingles are going to give you a 15 to 20-year lifespan. They're budget-friendly up front, sure, but they absolutely require algae-resistant granules to fight off that dampness from the tree canopy we mentioned. On the flip side, metal roofing requires a larger initial investment. However, it boasts a massive 40 to 50-year lifespan, largely because it sheds water instantly and fiercely resists that salt corrosion. Now, timing that investment is highly strategic. June marks the start of hurricane season, which brings daily thunderstorms and massive, frustrating rain delays. But October? October opens up the absolute best weather window. As the brutal summer heat finally breaks and the daily rain subsides, late fall gives you the ideal dry conditions to complete major repairs safely without exposing a wide-open roof to sudden daily storms. Okay, you also really need to understand what actually protects your wallet. Manufacturer warranties might cover factory defects for up to 50 years, which sounds great. But listen closely. They strictly exclude installation errors and storm damage. The manufacturer guarantees the shingle itself. Your local contractor is the one who guarantees the workmanship. If that roof isn't installed strictly to the local code, your fancy 50-year warranty is completely voided the moment it's nailed down. So I'll leave you with this. When was the absolute last time you checked your roof's frontline defenses? In a harsh climate like East Lake, waiting until you see a water stain on the ceiling means the serious structural damage is already done. Understanding the perfect storm that your home is facing every single day really empowers you to act before disaster strikes. Take a moment to evaluate the readiness of your roof today. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep learning.